Just player news first of all. Just a word on Harry. Obviously, the club have said he's going to be out for around 12 weeks from now. How big a blow is that for the group?
A massive blow, because Harry's the type of player that you want to build a club like the Leeds Rhinos on. So I don't know where we're going with all this today, but when you're building cultures, Harry's absolutely the type of foundational character and player that you want. He's world class. He's come through the system, super enthusiastic, and it's really disappointing. I think actually he's a victim of his own physical success. I think his fast twitch muscle fibres in his body is that strong. It's pulled itself apart, but that's all part of the journey. It's all part of building a little bit of resilience for him. And the way that I keep trying to help him see the positives in it is that the process will make him a more rounded, refined player. So massive blow, James. I wish he was inside, not just because he's world class when he's good, but because of what he brings culturally, what he brings philosophically and spiritually to this team. The excitement, the enthusiasm, we're missing him.
What's the situation with David Fussatua then at the moment?
Yeah, Fussy, he's had a bad knee, and that's brought about a little bit of confidence with him issues. He wants to play fit, as we all do, and he's had some real niggles and feels that he hasn't been at his best. So the medical team had a look at that. He had a scan, he had a bit of a lateral meniscus tear, so he's been in, cleaned it up, and that's getting repaired. So that's put behind him now, and it means that when he does come back, which shouldn't be too long, usually about a month, give or take, when he does come back, he'll be fit, he'll be healthy, he'll be confident, and he can just focus on his game rather than injuries.
On the plus side, though, I think you've had Richie Myler and Tom Holroyd back on the field.
Yeah, they've been. They're contributing. They've been moving around. Neither of which are ready to play yet. But one of the things that I've been trying to do is, regardless of whether you're injured or not, whether you're a young boy, an old boy, I just want everybody together. I think I talked about a collective IQ and a collective consciousness. Somebody like Richie Myler has got a massive wealth of information, knowledge, not just on his own game, our team, but the opposition as well. So, when he comes back into play, he needs to be up to speed with where everything's at, because he's fantastic and he really blends in as a pivot, as an extra pivot. But also, listen, they've got some valuable bits of information. Lads like Tommy Holroyd, big, strong, strapping lad, load of fortitude in him, and he can G up and rev up some of our forwards as well. So I want us all to be together, and it's good to have them on field.
So in terms of the selection sort of permutations, what have you been pondering ahead of Saints?
Obviously, middle rotations are always important. We're missing a couple. Obviously, Zane's still finishing off his last suspension. As you mentioned, Tommy Holroyd's not there. We've got a lot of hard-working forwards who can move quick, not always the biggest. And when you play against a team like St Helens, you've got to have a great deal of resilience. You've got to have the ability to dead stop them and not concede meters after contact. And that brings around a lot of effort. The saving grace, play to our strength, we can play quick, we can run, we can move. So for me, it's all about getting that fine balance between size, speed, energy and fitness through our middle. And then, the rest of it, you're looking at what you've got left, on edges. It is what it is, as you say, missing Harry, Newman, missing Fussy, and a couple more just means that we're probably a bit short of numbers on edges, but we're good.
Talking of the edges, Max Simpson's in the 21. He's a young centre, isn't he? What else can you tell us about him? And has he got a credible chance of featuring against Saints?
I don't think he's a million miles off, JD. He's unbelievable. I think we recognise him as a real potential star for the future. His strength really shines, and also his decision making and aptitude. So when you put a young boy in, usually they take a bit of time, maybe even years, to make consistently good decisions, especially on an edge when you're getting shapes thrown at you. But he seems to pick up and learn really quickly. He excels a lot quicker than most, actually. So that gives you a great deal of confidence that as and when the need arises, you can throw somebody like him in with a great deal of trust and belief that he's going to go do a job. So I wish we were in a position where that opportunity would present itself. We could throw him in, and understand that the other 16 players will better look after him. But where we're at the minute, it's still a bit yeah, we've got to play it a bit more safer, but he's absolutely going to be one to look at in not too distant future.
Just also on players as well, Ash Handley will make his 150th Leeds appearance. It's gone in the blink of an eye, hasn't it? What can you say about that as a milestone, personal milestone for him?
150 is brilliant. It's a brilliant one. And I remember some great games with Ash Handley, obviously one of the players that I played with. And it's wonderful to see him come through the system. That's what we want. That's what we're all about at the Rhinos. Cam Smith as well, 100 games. We played a video for both of them, just a recap of their careers. Cam Smith looks like he's played 1,000. When you look at when he come through as a young and what he looks like now, it looks like a seasoned veteran. But these are all milestones you've got to remember. You've got to celebrate. And certainly, you know, one of the hooks and levers that we want to use tomorrow is that those two guys will fight tooth and nail, mate. They'll give up blood, sweat and tears for the cause tomorrow, and we all need to be on board with them. I think the great symbols, both of them, of what this club needs to represent, and for all those reasons, we want to have a good performance tomorrow.
So how formidable a challenge do you face tomorrow?
I've got the utmost reverence for St Helens as a team. I think start of season, you ask the question, can they go on and do a fourth one, or are they going to get complacent? When you're a team like St Helens, and I've been fortunate to play in some good teams, everybody wants to knock you off your pedestal, and that's the big game. That is the big game. But the level of intensity that they showed, and I keep using this phrase, being comfortable or being uncomfortable, they're just at a level now within their careers as a group where it don't matter where you take them, they've got a belief and an understanding that they can weather it, which makes them very difficult to break down mentally. So you've got to throw some different things at them and hope that they've got a bit of an off game for whatever reason. They obviously lost to Toulouse in the last Super League outing, and that, you know, they'll have a multitude of reasons as to why that happened, I'm sure. But mate, in terms of how formidable they are, I think they could arguably be one of the strongest teams in Super League era. So it's massive. But at the same time, where we've been, I think we needed to take the lid off the proverbial jar and hope that some of the boys in our team understand both their potential and ability and the quality that we've got in the side. And with a bit of belief and a bit of flair and a bit of confidence, we can challenge St Helens and start building the season again.
You mentioned this St Helens team. You've played against the other teams that certainly in the Super League era, you know, people talk about the Bradford side, the Saint side that won the treble. You played in the Golden Generation side, of course. Can this St Helens team legitimately be put in that bracket as one of, if not the best Super League team we've seen?
I'd certainly love to lift them up and put them back in early noughties and sort of around that sort of 2006, 7, 8, 9 era. So there's two bits to that. The best team that I ever played against was that sort of 2006 St Helens team, and they were phenomenal. And you'd go there knowing exactly what they were going to do, but just seemed powerless to do all about it. And I have a joke with Longy about it all the time. That I've been at Knowles Road, that song, Dr. Alban's song, Sing Hallelujah, Sing It, Hallelujah. I loved the song, I used to love it. And I hated it, started hating it, because you'd go to St Helens and you'd be 18-0 down after 8 minutes. And they were just so quick, mate. And no matter how fit you was, they just blew you away through the middle. But we seem to always be able to get them at the back end of the season. You know, time our runs right. I would argue, and this isn't underplaying by any means the Saints team of today, there were some other formidable teams within the league, I reckon. You know, like your Bradfords, like your Wigans, and obviously Leeds had a decent one. Warrington had thrown some a bit of orthodoxy now and again. And you sort of have this tier at the minute, I think, where St Helens were just above the general tier of Super League. So it's hard to measure it like for like. But without a doubt, you can only ever play at cards you're dealt. And ultimately, history's judge on the medals that you've got in your cabinet and the names that are written down on the trophies. And St Helens have written and there's name down on the Super League trophy for the last 3 years of plenty of Challenge Cup success and have deserved it. And ultimately, that's all that matters. So, you know, credit to them. But I was thinking, I think the main thing to note for them that maybe potentially we need to learn from is some of that succession. Talked about it before. I think when you've seen Morgan Knowles, Matty Lees come through, a big fan of Morgan Knowles. Went to PNG with Matty Lees, really like him as well as a player. And then Lewis Dodd and Wellesby. Some of those boys now are like full-on senior pros. You know, the young kids have got loads of years in them, but they've been passed down that information, those behaviours, those values, and that's why they're continuing to be successful. And I'm sure they will be for a long time to come.
Yeah, and you mentioned last week after the game, you talked a lot about resilience and handling adversity and dealing with pressure in tough moments and all these sort of things. I mean, playing this St Helens team, you're going to come up against that more than practically, well, any other side in Super League, aren't you? Yeah. So how important is it that there is an improvement in that department? Because it doesn't need me to tell you if it's a bit like it was in the last 10 minutes of that first half, it could be very, very ugly, couldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that last 10 minutes as well, with that 12 men, and there's some fundamentals in there that I keep talking about, not least discipline. Wait, today's game, you can't play with 12 men, and it's just not being addressed, and it's an issue that's plagued us a lot of season. It's not good enough, and we can only look internally. But you're right in that there's an opportunity to understand where the level is, where the benchmark is, where the bar is, and St Helens are the benchmark without a doubt. They're outstanding, and if we're going to sort of compete and start to build our season, some of that resilience you're talking about, we need to get in that fire. Myself included as well. I've always quite enjoyed being in the fire. I've always called it really refining fire for a reason. It's refining, and it hurts like hell when you're in there, and it's horrible. But I've said plenty of times over the years that when you come out the other side, you come out a little bit more refined for it. It's just having that ability to stick in it and not melt. And quite often what it does in being in that fire is it separates the wheat from the chaff. You get all the dross coming off the top, and ultimately long term you just need to clean that dross off. You need to get rid of chaff, but the rest of it, the wheat, the good stuff, will grow off the back of it. And look, it'll be tough, it'll be difficult, but persuading lads that you're not going to die, you're going to be stretched, and it'll be painful. You'll come through. Do you know? Last week after the game, review game, and I watched Josh Warrington win his IBF title back at the arena, and just hearing what it looks and feels like when Leeds is doing well. And is the epitome of what Leeds is all about for me. Hardworking, consistent, loads of preparation, disciplined, humble. And it was great to hear the city get behind him again. And I've seen it plenty of times here at Headingley. That's what we want. That's the picture that we want. That is the image. Leeds has always been united in sport. I've said this before. But again, he finishes that fight, I think, with a broken jaw and I think with a broken hand. And that's what it looks like. That's where you need to be. And I've said it before. I've seen lots of players over the years finish games out at Headingley with broken limbs, with torn muscles, and fractured bones, and come off smiling, happy that they've been to war. We've got to learn how to go to war and come out of the other end of it with a smile on his face.
Apologies if I'm asking something that's already been asked. I missed the start. But Harry Newman had a operation now. How long is he going to be out for?
It'll be a while, mate. I was just saying to JD before, he's a big miss, as I said earlier. We'd love to have him back in, not just because of what he can do on the field, being world class, but also because he's great energy, he's real positive energy, and he's absolutely the type of player that you want to build this club on. So we miss him a fair bit, but I'm always encouraging Harry as well, where he can medically, to be around the team, to have some input, whether it be technical input, some knowledge, some inside information, anything from his experience, albeit limited, that he can contribute to the team. And also just because of his character's phenomenal, and we all love him. We all have an air on the back of our necks when he's around, because we get excited and we like to imagine what it might look like with that fit Aaron Newman in the team. And also that when he does come back, and it will happen, we're battling time, but it will happen. He understands where we're at as a group, physically, mentally, philosophically, and he can slot straight back in. So it'd be a while off, Pete. We're not even thinking about what he's going to do on the field yet, because we just need to get him medically right.
Do you have an update on Corey Johnson?
What's that, Paul?
Do you have an update on Corey Johnson yet?
Yeah, he's been on crutches as well, mate. He's had his knee done. He's no good, which is unfortunate, not least because Brad Dwyer's obviously had a suspension, and to have that back up around 9 is always a luxury to have. But yeah, Corey's still recovering. I'm not quite sure. It's not all like Harry and those types, but he's I don't think you'll see him for a few weeks.
Can I just ask about Jack Broadbent as well? Obviously, had a sort of a breakthrough year last year. I think he's only played once this season. Is he? He's in the squad for tomorrow. Has he got a realistic chance of playing? And what can you explain why we've not seen so much of him this year?
Yeah. Well, number one, Pete, I haven't picked him for the majority of this year. I've only had one game. So retrospective before that. You'd have to ask Rich Agar. Last week, it just felt like Liam Tyndall's been outstanding in training. He's a really strong lad, and I think physically he's got an immense amount of potential. And the only way to realise that potential is to get him some game time. And I'd just like to see him get some Super League minutes under his belt and bring about, some quick play of the ball, some ruck speed that he's really capable of doing. And because of his unorthodox nature, I think sometimes he throws something against the grain that people don't really plan for. So it's been a case of competition for places. But Jack's absolutely in with a chance of playing because he's a great player. He's competent. As you said, he's come through and he's a wonderful developing player. But I don't think he's near his full potential yet, what he could be. But only with game time will he get there. But Jack's very much in the mix without a doubt. He's been good, and I rate him as an individual.
How are you doing? Good to see you. Quick one, mate. The obviously a lot of people, me included, thought that the team would really do well last weekend against Castleford, and obviously it was disappointing to see that they didn't. But I just wonder this week. Everybody's now expecting you not to beat St Helens. You are going into this game as the probably the rank outsiders, I would say. And I wonder, therefore, if that's a good thing because it takes a bit of pressure off you. I mean, it's a truism, isn't it, that one good result can turn a season around. And if you're going in without pressure, and you've got the troops to pull it off. In my view, I wonder whether this could be a game that really, does turn it round for you.
Yeah, it could be. In regards to last week, I'd asked why everybody would expect them to just bounce back in space of a week. If there's some underlying issues that need fixing up, like I tried to articulate, there is that. It was going to be a process of incremental gains for us and build a season. I think, as always with anything in life, and I've said this before, disappointment and joy always comes out of the back of expectation versus reality. Whatever you expect will determine how you feel when the reality manifests itself. And a lot of people expected a reaction based on history of sport, I suppose, when football teams change managers or teams and this and that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, there are some things that we need to fix up. And listen, again, I think it might have been you that asked the question last week about some moments, some game-changing moments that happen within games. And we've just not had that mental fortitude to overcome them. And certainly because of the path we've been on, that confidence, once you get knocked again, it's like the demons come crawling back. And we need to realise that the lid's off the jar, and we just need to keep jumping. And I'm touching on the old flea metaphor there about being able to jump 8 inches unless you confine them to a smaller period. We've got to take the lid off and start jumping and realising the teams that's within this group. And if you looked at it on paper, we've absolutely got a chance of having a dig and performing. But there's so many little factors within the context of 30 men, making them all happy on the same page, playing together, and some little moments within the game that can be so influential on the ultimate outcome. So look, I think, I said it a few moments ago, the opportunity to play a team like Saints right now is a massive opportunity. and it's a great one, not just to build our season, but potentially to ask them some questions as well, back at home, in front of our fans who deserve something to cheer about. I've just said we've seen the example of what that looks like from Josh Warrington, but I'll say this, mate, if we get some of that desire and that passion and the emotion and energy, and that's what we get tomorrow, I'll be really happy. I'll be really happy because I think we won't be far off 1 to 17. And that's what I'm aiming for, to get some of that passion and desire back.
One of the things you just mentioned there was that tendency to, you know, for things to go against you and then lose confidence. And there was a perfect illustration of that, wasn't there, last Saturday when Greg Eden intercepted, just as you were coming back into the game. You know, Greg Eden intercepted, and he's done that to so many teams before in his career. But, you know, it just seemed to have, and it's difficult for us as watching on from the outside. You know, confidence is an easy thing to talk about, but it did look as though the team lost a bit of it. And I was just sort of contrasting, you know, Leeds have just been playing with a lack of confidence. And if you compare that to, say, Wakefield in the last 2 games against Warrington, particularly a kid like Mason Leno, who I've really enjoyed watching this year, who just seems to play as though he knows that what he tries is going to work. You know, whereas some of the guys in your side are so tentative at the moment. They're not sure that it is going to work. You know, I just wonder how you can bring confidence back into them so that they've got more, you know, more trust in their own judgment, so to speak.
Yeah, process. It's all about process. It's all about hard work on training field and just showing them what it looks like when it's done well and what it looks like when it's not done well. So this is what it should look like, and it all comes down to execution. This is what it doesn't look like, and it comes back to execution. How do you manage your execution? Well, with hard work on training field and practice and muscle memory and, you know, all those $10,000 and rest of it. Rewarding them for good behaviours, for good execution, and then telling them, you know, they need some more practices, need some work, remedial work when they get it wrong, and that's all part of sport. And as you say, sometimes it can change overnight. That ability to get a feeling where you're in the zone and you almost can't get anything wrong. And we, you know, using phrases like "you make your own luck," because all bounce of the ball seems to just come back to you. And you have this sixth sense of intuition. And again, that all comes down to synchronicity and a role. I think players have got to have the ultimate understanding that they've got a role within the team and an ownership within the position. And they understand, A, what that role is, and B, that they're accountable to that role as well, for the good of the group. And you know, they've got gratitude for players and coaches that help them and support them to fulfil that role. But that's process that you go through. You ask that question, is this what it looks like? Yeah, no. Is this what it looks like? Yes, no. And it all comes back down to execution and improving that on the training field. And then hopefully the confidence starts to come back.
Sometimes though, Jamie, I don't know whether you'd agree with this, but you've not got to be frightened to know that you're going to make mistakes because, you know, generally speaking, the more creative players will tend to be the ones that make the most mistakes. I always remember when Iestyn Harris played for Leeds and we got the stats after games, and Iestyn always made more mistakes than most other players, but basically because he was the who did everything and tried everything, and, you know, 80% of them would come off and 20% of them might not do, but that 80% would win the game, you know. So you know, you can't just tighten up and be frightened to try anything, I don't think.
Yeah, no. What would bring about that fear? What would bring about that fear?
Losing, of course.
Well, yeah, that an individual consequence. So there's a consequence in there. We're all accountable. So if you fear the consequence,
yeah,
you would be restrictive, wouldn't you? So what I say is, and again, I use the metaphor to keep it simple, taking the lid off and getting the boys to understand how high they can jump and have that belief that actually inside there, they've got that intuition and ability to play. And look, I think you mentioned the intercept pass that did deflate us after we'd started inflating again in that second half. And there was one in the first half as well, if you remember, that Greg Eden just fumbled, and it was a bit of a warning shot. And when you play those things back, it's those little bits of doubt that just before you pull trigger, you're thinking, should I, shouldn't I? Whereas you just played it. And I think, you know, having played sport myself, the ones that are good, the ones that where you're in the zone, they're not even conscious, they're subconscious. You just do it without even thinking. As soon as you start thinking about it, that's when it tends to go wrong. That's when it's a little bit behind, a little bit in front, because thinking means you're triggering that frontal cortex.
Self-doubt.
You're bringing in doubt. And what we've got to do is go through a process again of understanding, well, I've done this a million times, I can do it in my sleep. And I am doing it in my sleep because I'm moving on to the next thing now. As well as putting that pass on, I'm scanning everything around me. You know, and I'm getting, again, what I described as that sixth sense. So we've got to play a lot of games at training. We've got to manufacture and recreate some of those scenarios and get boys understanding what the good version of it looks like, and reaffirming that mentally for them and saying, but you can do it, you can do it. You know, you're all seasoned professional players and exceptional ones at that. You can do it, and this is what it looks like. And this is, and again, I need to get the other players showing the gratitude to those individuals when they do get it right, and letting them know that they're appreciated for their efforts and their extra efforts and the process in getting to where it needs to be.